So thank you so much for taking time out of your Friday to have a chat. Obviously, we're here to talk about Nosferatu. Count Orlok is kind of one of the most iconic vampires in cinema history. And I imagine sort of reinterpreting that character would have been quite daunting. What was the brief from Robert, and how did you sort
Mm,
of move forward with the design?
yeah, I mean, it does come across as daunting when you say it. It is kind of, it was for a minute or so until Robert kind of put the ground rules down as to how we were going to proceed with it. It wasn't going to be a creature or a monster or anything kind of like that, or a complete sort of imitation of the 1922 Max Schreck version. It was always going to be fresh and brand new. Um, so, yeah, we discussed the nature of who he was, before he was even Count Orlok, to the extent that he's a nobleman, and he's got to be charismatic and charming in a strange way, or he was, so it kind of gives you a rounded feel for what he's going to be and who he's going to be. He's going to be really tall, and he's going to be lean, but he's going to be muscular, and threatening, and so we had a few little hints there, and then with a few design elements that Robert brought in, he puts these mood boards together to give you a vibe of where he's going, you know, and then it's down to getting Bill Skarsgård's live cast and starting the process.
Nice. I think it's been said that there's not really much of Bill left once he's in the Orlok getup. I mean, how many prosthetics, were you working with, and what was that transformation process like?
There's nothing of him left. Even he said that. He said, only the soles of my feet were left untouched, which is very true. We did paint them, but they weren't prosthetics. Yeah, it's a hell of a process. I mean, he's wearing an awful lot of prosthetics, but sometimes you wouldn't notice it's that much. He's got about 9 pieces on his head and face. He's got about 28 pieces on his hands. I know it's all these little finicky pieces. He's got contacts, he's got dentures, and his entire body for the body shots as well. He has about 18 to 20 pieces on his body. Yeah, I know. And some of them are big and some of them are small, but it's not like a suit you zip up into. It's all individual elements that are stuck to him. And I have a team that not only process them and pre-paint them, but a lot of those people were involved in the actual application, led by Victoria Holt and Stuart Richards. And the deal is that they understand the language of how to get around Bill and who's going to do what and when and where, and that all happens in sync like a dance, and it's fabulous.
I think sometimes, an actor could get lost beneath the prosthetics, or kind of rely on
Hmm.
what has been created to do the work, basically.
Yeah,
But Bill, however, has a similar thing when he played Pennywise. He kind of seems to
yeah,
disappear inside of these, macabre creations, and bring forth this new life. How, and I think you also sort of had dealings with him on The Crow. How is he to work with as an actor, and what is it like, sort of like seeing him, become Orlok as
yeah.
this stuff is put
Yeah,
on him?
it's really interesting because what I worked with him on The Crow, as you said. So I was doing makeup on him then, and I got to understand how he works and his vibe, and it was very interesting. And I felt really secure and happy because he was so knowledgeable about prosthetics. Obviously, he'd been through so much
Mm.
that I felt really secure that he was able and happy that he was about able to handle what we were going to put on him. So it gave me kind of encouragement to really go there, and I could lose him under stuff, but I knew that it wouldn't lose Bill. He's going to be there. And I made special attention to around his eye area that it is still Bill, and in certain areas are really thin and delicate. So it is a kind of a strange joint amalgamation of elements that kind of create something, without his acceptance and help. I wouldn't be able to get there. So it's really good. It just worked really well.
I think one of the elements that really fascinated me when I've seen the film, it's the hands, they're very sort of
Mm,
elongated, and then there's the nails. And I think I spent most of sort of like my second viewing of the film trying to figure out like kind of where Bill
well,
ended and the fingers
yeah,
began. I mean, yeah, I mean, they must have been one of the trickiest things to do, because you've got
yeah,
to, obviously you need to achieve that look, but then he's also got to be able to still, manipulate, the world around him.
yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I'd done those kind of extensions before, not quite like that, but on Maleficent, I had a series of characters that also had long fingers, so I'd kind of been there and understood the nature of what they needed to be. But these were extra special because Robert wanted them to be very elegant and very thin and spindly because he was going to be using these a lot. And it's not just about opening boxes, writing letters and everything. It's about using those shadows for the shadow play of moving across the city and creeping and whatever. So he does a lot of work with the hands. So it's important to keep them really, really thin. And they're about half an inch of an extension beyond his own nail, his own fingertip. And then there's another half inch of nail over that. So it's quite a lot for him to be able to understand and get to grips with, literally, excuse the pun, and he did.
Yeah, it's incredible when you sort of, think of that. I mean, I can't, I mean, I can barely grow my fingernails, so
Yeah,
I'd be at a loss. So, um, I think one of the big things with Nosferatu, so often with marketing and advertising for films, particularly horror films, there's this thing of, let's, show the monster, let's do the reveal. But
yeah,
with Nosferatu, the appearance of Orlok was held back, pretty much until, people are going into the cinemas. Why
yeah.
do you think that was important, particularly with this character?
I think it was great. It was really, really helpful for the movie itself because it was a slow burn of different characters and elements that you were seeing as it got closer to the release. And I think it's always because he's in the shadows a lot anyway. It was only kind of, it was only proper that he should, keep himself under a cloak, and in the shadows as long as possible. I mean, it's very Orlok, isn't it?
Yeah,
Really,
yeah,
you know,
definitely.
yeah. So that's how it kind of feels to me. I thought it was terrific. I don't think I've seen or heard of that being quite so successful in terms of holding back a character that long. Um, in one way, it's frustrating, but on the other hand, I think it was the perfect thing to do, and it was very exciting. You know,
Yeah. And going back kind of, to your earlier career, some of your first on-set work came on Krull and the Keep and Return to Oz.
oh
Um,
my gosh,
what lessons did you kind of learn during that time, if any, that you kind of, still have taken with you throughout your career? Because I imagine that,
yeah,
those sorts of films were such a rich learning ground.
they really were. And you know what? They weren't that dissimilar to the way that Roberts, works in the sense that it was a lot smaller in terms of a film company or production. It was very tight knit. Communications are very direct, as opposed to being on a flood of, an email with 28 people and then a board meeting before you get to the director. It's a very immediate, raw thing, and it's very, very helpful. And that's what it used to be like in the old days. It was very much that way, just because we didn't have phones or internet. It was really intimate. So yeah, and I've always done pretty much as many of the jobs on the shows as I can, so that you get to learn all the different skills and techniques and understand what the crew go through and what their jobs are. Really, really important to be able to relate to them, and then now be able to translate and understand where they're coming from. Really important.
Mm. And I think one of the big arguments and debates that's been around for, the last, I guess, couple of decades is this whole thing between practical and
Hmm.
computer generated. I mean, I think
Yeah,
for me, I think that the marriage is somewhere in between. You kind of you do it
yeah,
in real life and then you use the computer to then enhance.
yeah.
Where do you sit on that fence?
I'm pretty much the same. I mean, I love the technology that they're using, but I don't. I don't. I prefer not to use it if I can. On this particular movie, there's no CG. There's no. I'm not using any of those kind of techniques in order to, do the work. Not scanning, not this, not that, not sculpting with a computer. Nothing. It's all done raw by human beings. It's terrific. Um, I know. But in terms of the CG, I mean, this movie it hardly touches Orlok at all, only for about 4 or 5 seconds at the end, if that, for whatever reason. But it's, I think generally it works really well.
Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. It's been fascinating getting to talk and sort of unpick the character. And best of luck with the BAFTA nomination. And I'm sure that there might be some more nominations to come.
Great. Thank you so much.